Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Supermarketers Podcast. I'm your host, Gen Furukawa, and today we are in for a treat with AI marketing expert, YouTuber Ryan Dozer. Ryan, I love your stuff. I first saw you online, saw your videos and what you do in terms of practical applications, over-the-shoulder screen shares, and so I asked you if you'd be willing to share. Thanks so much for taking the time and doing that.
Yeah, again, I appreciate you having me on. And that's kind of my selling point, I would say, in a world full of, I call AI hype grifters, is I want to show actual things that work in the real world and not just noise.
Totally. And I think we're doing something similar. You call it like the rabbit hole, right? The AI rabbit hole, ways that you can use it. And that's what I'm trying to do with supermarketers. So if we could just start quickly with what your background is, how you actually ended up being this AI marketing expert, and then let's get into the practical applications.
Yeah, so my career started, we were talking before the show here, at a company called Meredith Corporation. They're a big time media conglomerate, actually called People Inc. now after a couple rebrands. So I was managing hundreds of thousands of dollars in paid ads for People, Better Homes and Gardens, and all their other publications. Got sick of the 9 to 5 corporate America life, very grateful for the opportunity, or I wouldn't be here per se. But I started to learn SEO on the side and how can I actually make money online and do all these other things beside working 9 to 5 corporate for the rest of my life. That led me into working for myself in 2019, doing SEO, bringing on various clients. Fast forward to 2026 today, and I'm still working for myself. Now I have a YouTube channel in addition to client work that I started about 3 years ago. So about 33,000 subscribers now, about after 2.5, 3 years, somewhere around there. And I know this isn't the topic of this podcast episode here, but SEO is actually the foundation or backbone of how my YouTube channel even got off the ground. Because most YouTubers, they're just posting for educational purposes. They don't understand the keywords or the search intent or the behemoth SEO wise that Google or that YouTube is as a search engine. So that's kind of where I started from. And then that's kind of where I'm at today.
Right. You're a great marketer because that curiosity hook. Can you can you elaborate on that, like the keyword research and like you kind of like insinuated that you have it's not just education, but your content is highly educational. But like, yeah, how does that work in terms of like your approach to YouTube?
Absolutely. So my YouTube channel is full of different keywords, right? So I go after reviews, how-to tutorials, or even listicle style, right? So best AI marketing tools is a big keyword. Well, instead of trying to crank out a listicle on Google and get eaten up by AI overviews or try to outrank one of these big competitors, you're better off leveraging YouTube as a platform. And if you search for a lot of these queries on my channel, my YouTube videos are actually showing up very high in Google search results, owned by the same company. So they're putting a lot of YouTube videos in Google search results. Not to mention, Jen, YouTube is the second largest search engine on the internet behind Google. So a lot of people are coming to YouTube to search, looking for solutions to their problems. And so I'm optimizing my videos via target keyword in the title, target keyword at the beginning, 5-10 seconds into the hook, target keyword in the description, internally linking YouTube videos in the description so you don't take them off the platform, right? These are just the little nitty gritty things, and I could go on and on here, but SEO is just kind of the foundation of how my channel even got off the ground.
And also AEO too, right? Like YouTube is surfaced in ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini results. So you're getting that exposure as well. I was wondering if we can now kind of move into the application of how you're using this for SEO. So Claude Code, can you take us into it and what we can address today?
Absolutely. So are we good here? I'm screen sharing. Can you see that
Yes.
okay?
Yep.
Perfect. So what I'm about to show you here, and by the way, I have a full tutorial on my YouTube channel. I'm sure you could link that in the video
Yep. Yep.
description below that walks through this in more detail. I'm going to go through this very high level here. So here's a document, and I'm sure you'll leave a link to this too as I'll provide this. But what I'm about to show you here is a SEO Claude Code workflow where we can repurpose YouTube videos into SEO optimized blog posts on my website. And by the way, I started this website maybe a little over a month or two ago called ryandozer.com. I've always owned this domain. I just never really did anything with it. And so now I'm kind of using this as a test site. And after I have the Google Search Console analytics here, started February 2023, February 23rd, excuse me, but you'll see here like the metrics are a lot better than I expected, right? I know these are vanity metrics, are not really moving the needle right now, but the fact that ryandozer.com has zero authority, less than a 2 DR or domain rating, and I'm already starting to rank and gain traction for various Claude Code and other AI marketing keywords, like that tells me I'm onto something here for sure. And so the basis here is we're repurposing YouTube videos into blog posts. So if you look at all these YouTube videos on my channel, notice how I have a blog post that reflects all of these YouTube videos. So it's a simple repurposing tactic here. Now, repurposing YouTube videos to blog posts isn't anything new, but the fact that we can now do this with Claude Code with higher quality and in a fraction of the time is what makes this revolutionary. And so if I go back to this, SEO workflow prerequisites here, what you need in order to do what I'm about to show you is a paid plan of Claude. So I'm on $100 a month for Claude Max. You can start with the $20 a month Pro, but you need that to use Claude Code. You want to make sure you have Claude Code installed on an IDE. So I'm using a tool called VS Code. That is just my preferred way of using Claude Code, but you can use the terminal and whatnot. I'll get back to that here in a little bit. You also need long form YouTube videos that you can repurpose. So whether that's tutorials, podcasts work great for something like this because a lot of, founders, companies, brands have podcast content they're sitting on. You also need a YouTube transcript scraper. So I use a tool called Blatato, very popular AI marketing tool. They have the ability to scrape YouTube video transcripts. There are other options out there, but you do need something that can actually scrape those inside Claude Code. You also need a compatible CMS or website platform that allows MCP connection. So I use WordPress, makes it very simple. You can also do Webflow, and I think there's several other CMS providers out there that offer MCP connection these days. The other thing that you need is a skill markdown file for SEO content writing. Now, I'm not sure how much you've covered skills and whatnot on your podcast, Jen, but if I pull this up here, essentially a skill markdown file, and I'm going to bring this off to the right window. This is my SEO blog post writer skill markdown file. This is essentially an SOP or a recipe for Claude Code to look through this and understand what the desired output looks like. And so I know that, this is very long because I've created several articles and spent hours training this, but this is getting so granular to the SEO best practices of H2, H3 header hierarchy, internal, external linking. Where should the keyword be? What's the keyword density, word count, right? There's images, right? And there's so many different nuances and variables here. But I wanted to call that out first before I just get in this. And now let's actually run through a real world demo of what that would look like. But any questions before I do that?
No, that makes sense. Those are, I think you have a package of your Claude skills on your website, right? So
I do. Yeah. And I sell a digital product of all my skills, but the best part is, Jen, if you want to get this for free, I actually have this in my opt-in guide, and I'll send that link to you after the episode. So if you get my free opt-in guide, you can download an evergreen version of this SEO blog post writer skill. Now, I wouldn't recommend just downloading it and using it. You want to repurpose it with your context, your style, your instructions. That's a very important point, as people just want this silver bullet where they download something, they use it, oh my God, problem solved. But that's not reality, as you and I both know.
right. Yep,
Okay.
and also just quick caveat on the security of it. Ryan is not going to be prompt injecting anything malicious in the prompt, but you do want to be careful of just using skills.
That's a good point too. All right. So the example that I'm going to use here is I'm going to use a video titled, 7 AI marketing tools you need, or, you can rename this whatever you want. Best AI tools for marketing is the target keyword here. So I want to repurpose this YouTube video into an SEO optimized blog post. So that is the idea here. And so what I would do is I'm going to pull up Claude Code. I had this ready to go, so I wasn't copying and pasting and moving things back and forth. But this is what you would do, or a similar prompt of what you would do. You would notice here how I'm calling my skill in the very first sentence. So you need to let Claude Code know that that's the skill that you want to call. I pasted the YouTube video URL right here. I'm giving it a target keyword of AI marketing tools. That's just me understanding that that target keyword performs better than probably some other keywords. But I also included some secondary keywords. And the best part is you can throw a keyword research skill in here and connect it with an MCP like Ahrefs or Data for SEO or one of those platforms and do keyword research for you if you want to do that. But that's a whole separate topic I'm not going to dive into here. I also gave it a blog post title. Now, again, you can have Claude come up with these on your own if you want to, but the more context and inputs that we can provide here, the higher quality response that we're going to get. And I also had some other context that's more updated than my YouTube video, so that's the purpose for all this stuff down here. Now, what I would recommend you do, if this is your first time using Claude Code and VS Code or whatever, I'd recommend using plan mode or ask before edits the very first time that you do this. And as you get more comfortable, I wouldn't recommend people run with this right now, but I use bypass permissions a lot just because I know what I'm going to get from my workflow. I have guardrails set, but if you're new to this, I would not do that. So I would do plan mode. And then I would also click in here, and I would recommend if you're on Claude Max, I would use Opus 4.6 as your model. That is the best model right now for content writing, in my opinion. If you're worried about usage, you're on Claude Pro, you could probably get away with this with Sonnet 4.62. So make sure you have that checked. I would also turn off thinking mode. That's just going to eat tokens and it's not really relevant for this use case. I would just do lower medium. That's not a big deal, but let's actually run this in real time. And Jen, while this is running here, any thoughts, questions, concerns? Because this might take a little bit to kind of go through the full process.
No, so I guess a couple things. One, that you mentioned you invoke the skill. In the top of the skill, it says, if there's a word. So there might be like a list of terms that you might have there to kind of like, that's what Claude is reading, like the very top, what is it called? YAML, right? The description.
Yeah, honestly, I couldn't tell you, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that description of the skill is really important because it's not going to load the whole context of the skill. That's a huge file, but it will just look at the reference of the top to see, okay, this is a skill that Ryan's asking for in the SEO blog post writer. The other thing is, are we expecting this to go all the way through to the Blitato MCP, getting it live on WordPress, or is this more just like the blog post output?
Yeah. So once this is done, Jen, that's the beautiful part about this. Once this is done, what's going to happen is I'm actually going to go into WordPress and it will post a complete draft right inside my WordPress site. So there's no copy pasting. There's no going back and forth between different tabs. You could auto publish this if you want to go that far, but I would not recommend doing that, especially with Google's latest March core update that they just released the other day. You don't want to just spam blogs on, your website and try to rank for that's just not how it works, right? And we see that advice all the time because it looks shiny, sounds cool, but that's just not what works in reality. I'm telling you right now. So you want to make sure that you have this set to a draft. And then once this is done, I'll show you what it looks like. You can come in here, maybe polish it off, make a few tweaks, publish, index it through Search Console, auto index it through Bing Webmaster and Yandex, and then you're good to go, essentially.
The Blitato MCP, the Blitato is scraping the transcript. What about the thumbnails? I saw you have the same thumbnails on the YouTube as your blog. Is that Blitato?
No, so that's actually Claude Code. So Opus 4.6. So while this is running, I'm actually going to just throw it on bypass permissions just so it goes through this a lot quicker in the background. But once this is running, I'm going to show you what this actually looks like, right? So here's an example of, how to do keyword research in Claude Code. So let's just actually look quick on a SERP of Google. If I type in Claude Code keyword research, just to see, I'm curious if this is ranking at all. So there's the power of YouTube right there. My video is ranking 1 for that query. But if we scroll down here, so look, I'm already middle of page 1 and I published this yesterday, essentially, which not a big keyword, not a ton of search volume, but who knows, right? That might pick up. It's just cool to see that it's working essentially. And so I wanted to make sure that that was there. And if I actually click into this blog post, this is the type of output that you can expect doing this. And I'm not saying you're going to get this in one shot. There's going to be some fine tuning involved for sure. But notice how the video is automatically embedded. That's a huge thing. If I scroll down here, I also have it set in my skill markdown file to automatically include relevant external links that go off to a new page. So that's another little factor here. Hrefs and data for SEO were both mentioned in that YouTube video. Also in every blog post, I have it to call out my free opt-in guide that goes to a new page. So this is all automatic now. I don't have to manually come in here, add links. Trust me, bro, I was doing the old school days of content writing on WordPress. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but just the amount of tedious manual work that went into just adding links, adding internal links. And the other cool part about this is I have it set to automatically add internal links. We all know how much of a pain internal linking can be across your website. And how I did that is I gave Claude Code, I gave that skill markdown file, my XML sitemap, where it has this URL. So in real time, it scans through my XML sitemap, knows what, or I instruct it to know like, hey, find me 2 to 3 internal links that are relevant to the topic of this blog post. Also add optimized anchor text, and it went in there and did that. How Claude Code works for marketing. And if I click into this, it's going to internally link to my Claude Code marketing guide. And it did all this automatically, right? So that's the beauty of all this. And I'll take it even a step further, Jen. So if I scroll down, I had Claude Code set up a Python script or some other technical thing that I don't know exactly what it did to do this, where it also goes through my YouTube video, finds unique points in the transcript, takes screenshots of the YouTube video, compresses it so it's optimized for size, renames it a title that's optimized for my keyword, adds the alt text, uploads it to WordPress, and then places it inside a part of the blog post where it thinks it makes the most sense. And I think that's the real differentiator here. As I'm scrolling through this, I would argue that there's no way you could go through this and say that's 100% AI generated, that's slop, right? There's no way you could objectively scroll through there and say that.
Yeah, that is super impressive. And thank you for sharing the incognito SERP because yeah, it is working if it is a top result for Claude Code keyword research, which is something that actually I was very curious about. So if we, like, how do you identify this? This is like all these keywords are, you have your pillar topics, maybe it's like AI marketing, AEO, SEO, and then you're using the Ahrefs MCP to crawl the data for SEO, and it's helping you identify where there are keywords.
So this is just one particular blog post, right? If we're talking about a holistic SEO topical strategy for a site, then yeah, you could definitely do that. So it depends on what industry or niche that you're in. But like for me, my base niche is, I would say, AI for marketing, or even Claude Code for marketing, I guess. I'm still trying to figure all that out, but probably AI marketing is kind of that root subject. And you can just bounce that off with AI like Claude Code or whatever other models that you want, and then have it steer you in a direction of what are some other keywords that actually have search volume, that are actually, going after my ICP or my target audience, right? And then just let Claude or whatever other models steer you in the right direction to know what type of content that you should create. And while this is still running on that topic, I would recommend that you actually start your content creation journey or foundation on YouTube. A lot of reasons for that, but like I showed you, the power of it already ranking in Google SERPs a lot of the time. You can use this as a foundation to repurpose into any other content format, like I'm showing you as a blog post in this example, or an email newsletter, or social media posts, or short video clips for Instagram Reels, TikTok, etc. It just makes a lot of sense from a content strategy standpoint to start with long form video on YouTube, and also make sure that you're going after certain keywords for those videos. Am I making sense here? Or am I losing you?
Totally making sense.
Yeah. So let's pull this back up and see where we're at here. So it's still running, but if you go up, it actually gave me a checklist to see what the sub agent was working on. So update to do. So before it did this, it actually created its own checklist, and it's marking it off one by one of what tasks that actually have to get done to move on to the next step. So if I scroll down here, let's see where we're at. So yeah, I'm not sure how long exactly this is going to take for the purposes of this video. It should be done by the time we're done recording here. But while it's still running here, any thoughts, concerns, Jen, what I just explained?
Yeah, so I use Claude Code and I have one for my site, and like, so I think the taxonomy of how people structure their folders is really interesting,
Yeah.
and there is no one right way. But looking at yours, you have the skills, and I have mine. They're called commands because I had Claude help me build them out, and I think functionally they're the same. But the challenge I have is that it just kind of becomes this rat's nest of folders, subfolders, and things. So I think like having a thoughtful approach up front, because I'm kind of like building and exploring, and that's part of the learning process. But if I were to go back, and I do have it on my to-do list to be more strategic or thoughtful of how I'm organizing this, whether it's by brand or output or platform or use case. But looking at yours, it's really interesting to see how it's organized by you have the different skills by client, desktop, tools,
Yeah.
remotion. Yes, that's cool.
And you noticed I had remotion. I actually just installed that yesterday, but that's a good point that you brought up. And I need to come through here and actually clean this up. I was just installing things the other day. I didn't get back around to cleaning stuff up. So it looks a little messy here, but I loved your point about organizing the skills. And I might have too many skills at this point, but I also have an archive. So for any skills that I'm not using, I'll just throw it in a skills archive folder to make sure that I don't necessarily remove that skill completely in case it's something I want to go back to. But also a good tip I would say with skills, Jen, is that make sure for the skills that you're using that you're making sure that it's one dedicated task that doesn't overlap with something else, right? So you shouldn't have, three skills for writing an SEO blog post like I'm showing you here, right? I would recommend having one skill for that. Now, where it makes sense to have multiple skills from my experience is if you're doing something with emails, right? So there's a difference between a sales email and an email newsletter. That might be a little different to break those up into two separate skills, but just keeping it simple with one task equals one skill. And you'll see here I have a I have a web designer skill. I have a sales email skill, a social media skill. I have a YouTube thumbnail designer skill, a Google Ads skill, an anti-slop skill, email newsletter skill, right? Et cetera, et cetera. Just skills dedicated to certain marketing tasks that I'm actually working on.
And then are you using Claude's skill creator skill to create
I
those?
am.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I have a system. It's in my systems folder. So I have a skill creator skill. And the other cool thing that I added the other day was Carpathy's auto research. I'm sure you probably came across that. So now I have that set up, which is actually tied to this SEO blog post writer skill. So after this is done, what should happen is that my auto research system will automatically improve this skill depending on the type of feedback or whatever other context that I gave it at the beginning. So it can keep updating and improving for the next round.
I have heard about it. I haven't installed it or tried it, but it will work on things in a recursive loop, right? So do you have
Yeah.
to invoke it, or will it automatically just say, hey, this was the output, Ryan made these changes, so we'll improve the skill in this way?
So when you set it up, you do have to give it directions on what particular skills you want it to work on, what skills you probably don't want it to work on. There is some setting up that goes into this. You can't just install it and expect it to automatically update skills perfectly every single time. But once you get it set up and give it some direction, it is really cool to see what it can do in the background.
Yeah. Uh,
But it looks
and
like we're almost done here. So you'll notice that the blog post is pretty much written. And what I actually have done is I have a folder for blog post archives. So in addition to me posting this on my WordPress site, I have a folder where it's saving locally every single blog post file that it creates. Not only to help with added context so the skill can keep improving over time, but in case something were to happen, WordPress deletes it, whatever the case may be, I now have that blog post locally on my device. So that's a good tip I would recommend for people creating content with this is to always save things locally.
for sure. And if you're working with clients, maybe you also have a Notion or Airtable connector or MCP, and then that way you can have a content calendar, update that, but then also maybe you're saving the actual file in a folder.
So I don't have either of those tools, but I do have meeting notes. So anytime I'm doing meetings, I always have those saved in markdown format or TXT format. And I'm always adding that in my Claude Code setup just for reference, right? The more that we can build up our vault, I like to call it, of whether that's meetings or just anything that we're working on, the better off that your results from anything in Claude Code are going to be. And I'm sure you've probably seen the same experience.
Yeah. So another question with Blotato. So Blotato is you're scraping for the transcript, but then Blotato is also basically like Buffer or Hootsuite to publish to different platforms.
Correct.
So that's what you're using to get from Claude Code into your WordPress site.
Correct. Well, no, that's another feature of Blotado. So what I'm just doing right now is I'm using the YouTube transcript scraper, which is a feature that Blotado has, and then I'm repurposing that into a blog post. If I wanted to repurpose this into social media posts, I definitely could do that too, right? You can set up your social media accounts within Blotado via accounts, whatever, set up just like a typical social media scheduler. You'd sync all your accounts. You would set up Blotado via the MCP. So you originally, Sabrina Romanoff, who I'm good friends with, the founder, she has an API key that originally that's how you connected it. But now she set up the MCP client for Blotado. So theoretically, if I wanted to go back, let me pull up my Claude Code setup here. Now that this is done, if I wanted to also repurpose this into social media posts, in addition to that blog post, and then post them directly to my accounts using the Blotado MCP, I could definitely do that.
Really cool. Wait, but
Yeah.
when you're saying repurpose, that's text? That's not like a clipping up the video, right?
Text. Yep.
Text. Okay.
Text. Yep.
Or even
So
you could take the screenshots, right? You could kind of like attach those screenshots, create a carousel like you did in your blog post.
for sure, for sure. And it looks like this is all done here. So the draft is saved locally, but let's actually go to WordPress to make sure that this worked correctly. So if I go to my WordPress site on the back end, let's refresh this. Here is that draft right here. And so if I click edit, what's also really cool about this, the way that I set this up, is you'll notice that it automatically checked the AI tool reviews category. So I had it, determine what category is relevant for this blog post. You mentioned the featured image or the thumbnail. Well, guess what? It automatically gets that thumbnail from the YouTube video and inserts that as the featured image. It automatically, I'm using Yoast. You can use Rank Math, whatever other SEO solution that you want here. I'm just doing something quick and easy. It automatically added the target keyword. It automatically optimized that permalink based on the keyword. Automatically updated the meta description optimized based on that keyword, right? It automatically added me as the author. So instead of me going through here and trying to go through every single knob and pull these levers like we used to in the past, it's taking care of all of this work. And so if we actually go to the preview, so let's go ahead and preview the post here to see what it would look like. This is the post. So here's the video embed. Here's the H1, H2, and it added all my links like I instructed it to. Here's those screenshots that I mentioned. So it went through that YouTube video, took screenshots, added those, optimized it with captions and alt text, blah, blah, blah. Scroll down, another screenshot. But you'll see how it's properly using the H2, H3 header hierarchy here as it's listing out the best AI tools as H3s under that main H2 right here. And so if I scroll down, gave it some FAQs, my final thoughts, which I want in every single post, has my author bio in every post. So this is the finished product. And what did that take us? About 5 minutes?
Yeah, totally passive. Upfront, you put in the time. I wonder are those your affiliate links or are those just actual links?
Yeah. And so that's the other beauty, right? And so I trained it. I'm glad you're bringing up all these little points because I forget about all these little things when I do this. But like Blotado, you'll notice here that this is my affiliate link. So anytime that you want to add your affiliate link in a potential blog post where you mention a certain tool, you can throw that in the skill markdown file so that anytime it mentions it, it will automatically throw my affiliate link in there.
That's great. Then also, I see a lot of sites where it won't open in a new tab. It'll just redirect in the same window. So you actually end up losing the traffic, but
Right.
you've probably added as in the skill, open in a new tab, which is very
Correct.
smart. I have a couple of sites on Webflow, and now I'm at this point where I think maybe like I should just do this all in Claude Code. However, I wonder, am I missing some of the infrastructure if I like just host it on Netlify or Vercel that you have in WordPress or Webflow? What do you think of that? Is that like, am I missing some things in this like $40 a month subscription that I'm overlooking?
So I'll be honest, I'm not, I've built some landing pages with GitHub and Cloudflare and Vercel, but in terms of actually trying to scale a site and get results from SEO, I haven't gone down that path. What I would say with Webflow is I do know that they have native MCP connections with Claude Code. So that might be something to look into first. But I think where this is all going, and this is a bigger conversation, is I think we're going to start seeing people move away from the web flows, from the WordPress, from the Wix, and we're going to see people going straight to GitHub, creating a repository with their vibe coded files from Claude Code, and then use a solution like Cloudflare or Vercel, and eventually start to build things out more at scale. I don't think the SEO strategy really is there yet for that type of solution, and that's something I'm still trying to figure out on my own time here. But I just think that's the direction of where web development is starting to go.
But when you say SEO strategy, that is stuff like the focus keywords or the meta
Correct.
description, the JSON LD, that kind of stuff. You're saying is not implicit in a Claude Code build out. So you need to like build that out specifically.
Yeah. So you could build it in the Claude Code build out, but I guess what I'm trying to say here is that it's a lot less user friendly than pulling up a Webflow or a WordPress where you have a nice plugin or you have nice fields to fill out your meta description, your title, your target keywords. It's a little more confusing, especially to those who don't have an SEO background and they just want to get results, right? It's going to be very difficult to do that.
Yeah, one of the sites is a directory site, vibemarketers.ai, and it's like I'll just create some tools, profiles, kind of in a similar way to what you've done, where you have your tools and you reference them as an affiliate. But yeah, Webflow would get expensive. Programmatic SEO kind of by definition has to have a lot of pages, or so it would be
Right.
expensive over time. And I'm thinking, well, more flexibility with the design, the content. I could do all of this, but still TBD. That's maybe like a future project to take on, but I don't know if I'm opening up a can of worms. That would be a bad idea.
Yeah, and the other thing I just can't stand anymore, to be honest with you, is like there's a lot of association out there when people hear AI content, they associate that with AI slop. And what I just showed you, I would argue till the cows come home, is not AI slop whatsoever, because I've literally brain dumped my entire SEO knowledge base into one skill markdown file. When people think of this stuff, they think just going to ChatGPT or Claude and say, write me a blog post for this keyword, and they think that that's going to give them results. Like if you actually want high quality outputs and results that convert to something in the real world, you have to put in the actual time to creating something like a skill markdown file that continues to update, that's transferable across other platforms beyond Claude Code. You could use this in, Notebook LM if you wanted to even do that and have Gemini models write things, right? I mean, we could go down that rabbit hole if we want to too. But you see what I'm saying here from a high level is that having this skill markdown file of my brain dump of SEO is what ensures that the output looks something like this. And again, my site isn't a massive authority right now. I'm doing no outreach for backlinks and other trust signals and whatnot. But this is just kind of my testing ground of this Claude Code SEO workflow to just see what happens if I repurpose YouTube videos into blog posts and start to reiterate and learn from it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. One question that I had there is, so you have an AI slop remover,
Yeah.
or I forget what you call it, and then you have your SEO blog writer. How do
Yep.
those overlap, or how are they different or complement each other?
That's a great question. There probably is some overlap here, but this anti-slop skill is kind of a high-level skill that I use for everything in Claude Code. And by anti-slop, we all know the slopification outputs we see in AI. It's not this, it's that. Delve, robust, and all these AI common words and phrases that we see everywhere, right? The brutal truth, the catch, here's the kicker. And so this is kind of like a high level skill that's just excluding all of these AI slop words and AI slop phrases, and it's working in tandem with other skills, if that makes sense, right? So there is some overlap probably, but this is just kind of the workflow that I've been using that works well for me.
Got it. And then with Claude Code, are you using hooks at all?
Define, what do you mean by hooks?
So Claude Code has hooks. So it's basically like before you move on to the next step, you need to check. It's almost like a checkbox or an approval stage. So for you, for example, be once this the AI blog writer is done, before sending to WordPress, it would go through
Mhm.
this check. So I have not used hooks, and that's why I'm asking. But as I understand it, it's just basically like another approval process.
So maybe I am using a hook. I don't know technically here, but the way that I've set up that skill markdown file is that it has to triple check that the previous step is done, completed verbatim as is on that markdown file before it's able to move on to the next step. So there are a lot of guardrails that I have set within that skill markdown file. So it's not just running through everything all at once where it's, sub agent here, sub agent there. It's critically thinking, it's checking before it goes on to the next step.
Yeah, that makes sense. Uh, Man, this is 35 minutes of pure, like, just mind blown with what can be done. And just, I think we're really just scratching the surface, but you've put in so much work and thought into this. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. And like you said, we are just scratching the surface, right? So my plan now is to implement a similar workflow into other higher authoritative, higher DR sites that I have clients or I'm working on the side to see if this works at scale, right? I want to test it on something smaller where something breaks, I don't have much to lose before I implement it on some high dollar site.
Amazing. Ryan Dozer, so you spend most of your time on YouTube, you're active on LinkedIn and X as well?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Yeah, I will drop those in the show notes. Ryan, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me
Yeah,
on.
of
This was fun.
course.